President Tinubu inaugurates Economic Coordination Council to revitalize Nigeria's economy.
We must increase our oil production to 2 million barrels per day within the next few months.
Ending open defecation by 2025. Vice President Shettima inaugurates steering committee for the Clean Nigeria Use the Toilet campaign.
Your commitment and recognition of the issues at hand are critical. Together, we can solve them.
Appeal Court reinstates Martin Amewule and 24 other members of Rivers Assembly as Abuja Court voids PDP governorship primary in Edo State.
Inclusion and continuous stay of NPF in PENCOM has placed them on the wrong end of the post-service emolument life.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss research in cancer and international collaboration, plus albinism awareness 10 years after.
Okay, research is a systematic and structured process of gathering and analyzing information, data, and knowledge to answer a specific question, solve a problem, or test a hypothesis.
Research is essential in various fields, including science, medicine, social sciences, humanities, and technology, to advance knowledge and understanding, improve practices and policies, develop new products and services, address societal challenges, and for informed decision-making.
Research is a vital tool for advancing knowledge, improving lives, and addressing complex challenges. And this calls for international collaboration, where different countries work together on a common issue. It involves sharing experiences, knowledge, and resources.
Today, we turn our attention to a critical area of healthcare that affects us all: cancer. As Nigeria grapples with the growing burden of cancer, research and international collaboration have become increasingly important in the quest for better treatments, improved outcomes, and ultimately a cure.
Now, over the past decade, Nigeria has made significant strides in cancer research, from basic science to clinical trials. But there is still much work to be done to bridge the gap between research and patient care.
On the program today, we are bringing together leading researchers, clinicians, and international partners to share their insights and experiences, from the latest breakthroughs in cancer genetics to innovative approaches in radiation therapy. We would also explore the cutting-edge research that's shaping the future of cancer care in Nigeria.
We will also examine the importance of international collaboration, the challenges of translating research into practice, and the stories of hope and resilience that inspire us all. So join us as we delve into the world of cancer research and international collaboration in Nigeria, and explore how together we can make a difference in the fight against cancer. Welcome to the program. I am Victor, as we are reaching you on the network service of the NTA.
And that's not all, Victor. We also have another topic this Friday, the second part of the program, of course, and it focuses on albinism awareness, 10 years after. And I know that, Victor, you may say, how time flies. Yeah, time really flies. So, of course, we'll be having someone come talk to us about, the struggles for the albinism world right here in Nigeria. I'm Yenwe John. I join Victor to welcome you to this very wet and cold Friday's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Of course, the newspaper review will be coming up shortly. That should warm you up a bit before we get into the conversation, which, of course, will do the final heating up. Do you agree, Victor?
I hope so.
All right. So, but for now, let's join Musa Abubakar, who doesn't feel worried about the weather at all. looking very bright, sharp, and hot, if you like sizzling this morning.
Of course,
Musa, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ari. And good morning, Victor. Well, here's the news. Various sectors of Nigeria's economy is about to receive a boost of 2 trillion naira funding as President Bola Tinubu inaugurated the Presidential Economic Coordination Council as another strategy to revitalize the country's economy.
We must increase our oil production to 2 million barrels per day within the next few months. Remove all barriers for entry investment into the sector to enhance competitiveness. And we must increase our staple crops by smallholder farmers.
The federal government is putting more measures in place to stem the rapid spread of cholera epidemic by tackling the root causes, restating the commitment of the Tinubu administration to end open defecation by 2025. Vice President Kashim Shettima made the commitment while inaugurating the steering committee for the Clean Nigeria Use the Toilet campaign at the presidential villa.
Your commitment and recognition of the issues at hand are critical. Together, we can solve them. But most importantly, where there is the will, there is the way. We will engage the subnationals for us to have a buy-in from them.
Federal government has announced 50% to 100% increase in fees and rates of the 268 different licenses in the solid minerals sector. Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dede Alake, made the announcement in Abuja.
But the highlights are: 1, applicants for mining lease will now pay 3 million. Now, reconnaissance permits will now attract a fee of 300,000. Exploration license will now be 600,000. Small-scale mining license will be 300,000. Quarry lease will be 600,000.
The Senate has passed for second reading bill that seeks to remove the Nigeria Police Force from the contributory pension scheme under the management of Pension Commission (PENCOM). This will enable the establishment of Police Pension Board for improved disengagement, emoluments as obtained in other sister security agencies.
The resultant inclusion and continuous stay of NPF in PENCOM has placed them on the wrong end of the post-service emolument life.
Security services are enjoying in terms of pension. I think mutatis mutandis, it should apply to the Nigerian police.
The National Assembly has been asked to fast-track the process of creating a constitutional role for the traditional institution in the country. This is the consensus of speakers during an interactive session for traditional rulers and socio-cultural groups moderated by Speaker Tajuddin Abbas at the ongoing National Assembly Open Week.
There is nothing wrong in creating a constitutional role for the traditional institutions.
The solution as to who or where the traditional institution will be cannot be answered adequately by us without them also giving their own inputs.
Well, those are the highlights of the news at this time. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Victor and Henry after the commercial break. Please don't go away.
The federal government of Nigeria wants vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables, and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
The Honorable Minister of Work, His Excellency Senator David Umahi, CON, cordially invites the public to the stakeholders' engagement on Nasarawa, Kogi, Benue State, and FCT 284-kilometer segment of the 477-kilometer Cross River, Southeast, North Central Apo Abuja Superhighway, scheduled as follows. Friday, 5th of July, 2024. Venue, Nasarawa State Exco Chamber. Invited guests include governors of concerned state, Senate, and Federal House of Representative Committees on Works, Honorable Minister of Line Ministries, emirs, royal fathers, professionals, and technocrats, Nigerian Communication Commission, and major telecommunication service providers, Nigerian Institute of Estate Surveyors and Valuers, Nigerian Society of Engineers, and other relevant stakeholders and media. We count on your cooperation in the renewed hope agenda of enhancing national connectivity and transportation flexibility for economic development. Please accept the esteemed regards of the Honorable Minister of Works. Announcer Yakubu Kofamata, Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Works.
The new Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. So, no need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo 3-in-1 is such a smart choice. Energy to go further.
From Nestle.
A good farmer is a craftsman of the highest order. It is said, great farmer, great nation. No farmer, no nation. Yes, let's set the ball rolling to build that great Nigeria where good food is in abundance, affordable and easily accessible. The Renewed Hope Initiative, RHI, an initiative of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, CON, is aligning with the vision and aspiration of the administration of President Bola Tinubu, GCFR, and is organizing the Every Home a Garden competition. The competition is under the scope of agriculture of the Renewed Hope Initiative. For the competition, women are encouraged to immediately plant a garden at home, such that the harvest can provide adequate food on their table and enough to give their neighbor. This competition is open to only women. She must be a first-time farmer. The garden must be in her home, and it is open to women in every state of the Federation and the FCT. Interested participants should do a 30-second video and a picture of the garden, which indicates its location, to the office of the First Ladies of their various states. The winner of this competition will be announced in December 2024, and the winner of the competition goes home with 20 million naira. Women, join the train. Be part of the food revolution in Nigeria. What are you waiting for? Let's get to work. This message is by the Renewed Hope Initiative, RHI, an initiative of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, CON.
Nigeria means a lot to me.
And Nigeria means peaceful cohesion.
My country.
We continue to pray, and then hopefully we will come to understand that unity of purpose, unity of living together.
Our ethnic beliefs and background and culture is our strength.
Ever since the amalgamation period of 1914 to date, about 109 years ago, the people of Nigeria live very peacefully with one another.
I think diversity helps a lot to enhance robust development in Nigeria.
All over the country, you have so many ethnic groups, over 250. That is enough to tell you that this is a blessed country, and that God has kept, together as one indivisible entity.
Thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. And up next for us here is the newspaper review.
right, we got Chukudi Okoli with us this morning. Chukudi, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nyere. How are you doing?
Very well, good to see you.
You're pairing up with Victor today?
Looks like that.
It's okay. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you.
How are
Good
you?
morning. I'm all
You
right.
see, I get overzealous. I'm the one who welcomes you.
All right, let's take a look at what the papers are saying this morning. The lead with the leadership this morning, and the lead story here. The lead story on the leadership says courts wield big stick in Kano, Rivers, Edo crisis. Give to Kano judges 48 hours to resign over Ganduje's probe. Void Edo PDP governorship primaries. Details on page 4 of the leadership. Away from that, just beside the masthead, we have UK 2024 exit poll gives Labour Party landslide victory. Details on page 7. And above that story, we have this trending news, of course, everywhere, and Nigerians wanting to get the details of the agreement. It's the Samoa agreement, $150 billion loan. Reactions trail signing of that agreement. Page 7 has the details, of course. You want to find out what that is about. And away from that, quickly, we have a picture here, very beautiful one. Lagos retirees beam with smiles. And of course, I'm sure that's as regards their retirement benefits, being given to them. Wonderful. All right, so that's the much we have on the front page of the leadership this morning. Quickly move now to the Nigerian Tribune. The Nigerian Tribune leads with court verdicts unsettle Edo PDP. Rivers politics. Details on page 3. The riders' judgment invalidates PDP primary that produced Igodalo. Aswe Ogie ticket intact, says PDP. Appeal court voids order stopping pro-Wike lawmakers from parading themselves as Rivers Assembly members. Pro-Wike Rivers Assembly members remain sacked, according to opposition federal lawmakers. So much, going on. You want to see that. Above the masthead, expect more flooding. Federal government warns states and local governments. And the rider lists flood-prone states, says downpour may worsen cholera. Of course, need to pay attention to this health challenge at the moment. And then next to that, we have Tinubu plans 2 trillion naira injection into economy. Inaugurates Presidential Economic Coordination Council. Nigeria's economy will rebound in months. If you want to find out the concluding part of that statement, coming from Dangote, page 2022. Page 22 has that story. I'll just take a few more before we move to the next paper. We have Kano Emirship tussle. Bayero's Council withdraws legal services. Ekiti State rated highest in 2023 IGRO collection. And finally this morning, we have Senate probes $5.7 billion Mambila power contract. And that's also on page 22. Victor.
Right on the front page of the Vanguard, where we've dealt with the court tsunami from the other papers. So let me go with the lead headline here. 21 LGAs in 10 states, FCT submerged in flood. That's according to the federal government. Says no release of water from dams. Cameroon's Lagdo Dam wants states LGs to safeguard lives of Nigerians. And just above the nameplate, FG's debt to petrol importers exceeds 9.1 trillion naira. And you can get details of that story on page 19. Samoa agreement in interest of Nigeria. That's according to the federal government. And details of that. What is Samoa agreement? Well, you find details on page 2. JAMB uncovers 3,000 fake graduates. For details, if you are one of them, well, find it on page 9. And finally, just before I let go of the Vanguard, Mr. and Mrs. And Mrs. says, you transferred 15,000 naira instead of 20,000 naira. And he says, I must have forgotten. What did you ask me to buy? Asks Mrs. Cow leg, liver, and fresh fish, says Mr. And finally, how come you remember those? That's according to Mrs. Chooks the boy.
Yes. Leave matrimony alone, okay? They will sort it out. Now, the floods, I want to say, are coming too early in the year. The minister actually said while talking about the high flood risk states that some of the states started experiencing what he called varying levels of flooding and its associated disasters as early as April this year. You know why I'm harping on this? It means that when we now get into July, August, September, which is the time you get to hear that Lagdo Dam in Cameroon, blah, 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 all those rituals we hear annually. When that happens, is it then going to be a deluge? It is a great alarm bell ringing now concerning flooding. And just like yesterday, I said it is good for us to keep talking about these floods every year. But what one fails to read is the huge effort that happened to curtail the floods in the year gone by. If we do not do that, climate change is real. Don't mind Donald Trump. Climate change is real, and the point is that nature is something you can't stop if you try to block its path. Yeah, we are saying that if we reduce the emission of greenhouse gases, the global warming will reduce, and the ice melting in the Arctic is going to, slow down a bit. But that is a huge, huge, huge thing to undertake. The best thing is for us to go about how we can counter the disasters inherent in these rampaging floods. Well, they're ravaging, they're rampaging, they're everything negative. And it's not good. It's not just residential landscape that is threatened. The point is that the floods are also washing off crops. You understand? Once you remove the surface of the earth, you do something to manure in the soil.
The much talked about food security.
Yes, that's the point. It's not something we should take lightly. It's really unfortunate. 21 local government areas in 10 states, federal capital territories submerged already.
What can be done?
Oh, well, what can be done is the world really tries as much as we can to stop the emission of greenhouse gases, as I said, and reducing global warming in the process. Remember, I can't recall any year I've spent in Abuja that was as hot as this year. January to April. I can't recall such a year. And Victor, I'm not a prophet of doom, is going to get worse next year.
I hope not.
So?
What is it about this Samoa agreement that is generating controversy, as it seems?
The Samoa agreement, actually, I didn't delve into that enough. If you just give me a one-liner there, on it.
Well,
but at the end of the day, what you're going to find is applauding all the moves being made by the federal government to reattract prosperity into our land. Everything that is being done, I don't know the details of the Samoa agreement, I have to confess. But at the end of the day, everything that is being done by this administration is seen as something that will eventually percolate into goodness and return of prosperity to the shores of this country.
Those who are criticizing it are saying that it's, that the agreement also comes with, getting those who take the loans or who sign the agreement to support, what do you call that, same-sex, LGBTQ, and all that. So, so I think that's what the issue is.
Well, Victor, the point in life is that there will be a divergence of opinion as long as Victor is not Chukudi. That is how life is. Even among economists, there is no agreement on what is the best model for Nigeria to, Now you're talking about a particular group of people and all that. Once you mention LGBT in Africa.
Because, yes, culture, religion,
yes,
all against it.
Victor, wait a minute. It's not as if LGBT has not been a case in Africa. Africa had a way of handling it. They will tell you, if you have a biological disposition, psychological, whatever it is, we don't know what is behind same-sex things. Please, Africa abhors it, hide it. Don't let's get to know about it. What is our problem is people legitimizing it and asking us to call it the greatest public offer anyone has seen.
No, but the call would just be that for Nigeria and other African countries looking out to get loans, it's important to read the details of such agreements properly. Not because you need money to do one or two things and then you just go ahead to sign anything. There's need to always double check. You know what to say, that if you want to keep something away from the black man, put it down in a book. So
that's an insult.
When they come, when the agreements come with this long, it's important to read and understand what the agreement says before you go ahead to sign.
Yes, it's okay. You see, you're talking like a journalist. I like you talking like that. But for people to assume that anyone in authority in the position to sign agreements will just sign an agreement without reading it, that is almost...
Reading and understanding.
Why would we assume that those who are charged with getting some responsibilities performed on our behalf do not have the ability to understand? You're going to find out that it is controversy that actually propels the thinking of particular sets of people in the country. So at the end of the day, it's a controversy.
Sometimes in a bid to just get the money, you're just willing to sign and, just...
Desperation could actually make you do certain things. I agree. So you are cautioning us. Yes. But I don't think that those who are signing are dunderheads. I don't think so.
Well, I'm sure
we need to understand the story properly before we can actually...
the Minister of Information has come out to say it was signed in the best interest of Nigeria.
What has that done to what I said? It tells you that those who signed it do think that it is to our benefit. So you give them what? The benefit of the doubt.
All right, something it's not the benefit of the students at UNIBEN. Yesterday, the school was shut down, over protest breakdown
of law and order.
Yes, the students are asking for increased number of hours in terms of power supply. They claim that they get just between 1 to 3 hours per day, which is not, okay for them, considering the fact they're preparing for exams, and the management is saying that they've been cut off public power supply because of contentious bill, so they have to do with power generating sets.
Remember that because we mentioned.
Of course, I do. I'm just waiting for
all of that. So I'm just saying that there's need to sit down with the students, get it sorted out, and get them back to school, just so that they can continue their academic activities. This is not good for parents.
How much did we cite yesterday? 270 million monthly electricity bill. That tells you that R&D has been suffering in the institutions. By now, our universities should all have had a way to power themselves. So, you see, when you begin to put out a fire, when it is already consuming the sitting room, it's always a problem. We never engage in proactive, preemptive action. And at the end of the day, we get to pay for it. The universities, I assert, should not be complaining about power now.
I agree with you. But
the solar panel gardens, China is now being known for and all that. We should have hit there a long time ago.
Solar panel is not cheap for a university as massive as the University of Benin.
Victor, you're not getting it. I hear time is up. The point is this. Did we prepare ourselves to even engage in that technology? That's what we're talking about. Okay.
All right, many thanks, Chukwudi. I think I like your point on that, and I hope that the universities are listening, other universities are listening, to avoid this kind of breakdown in their schools too. All right, so we'll take a break. Many thanks, Victor. Did I say Victor?
It's okay.
Many thanks, Chukwudi.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you for coming today again for News Review. So we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll get into the conversation. Of course, our first topic is on cancer and international collaboration. Please stay with us.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, We rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree. We sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Each ethnicity is unique, we have more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthened in unity. We know they carry last. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Sir, you think you're in club? Remove your glass. You cannot wear your sunglass on here. Mention something a Nigerian would ask for when buying suya. Rice. It's hard. I know all these beautiful women, guys. It's hard. This job is not allowing me to be free of my step, to just tease and back to being the host. Are you in a current relationship now?
No.
No. Yamisi is just a friend.
Yes.
You're single. Yes. He's single. Maybe they can mingle. Survey says.
You have to move from the point where you protect and defend your religion to a point where you also recognize the rights of the other person, of the other religion, and protect it. So if I am protecting my own territory and my own people and trying to emphasize their rights and protect their rights, I should also be thinking about how to protect the rights of the others.
Both Islam and Christianity recognize and defer to God, and both recognize the temporariness of the life of this world, and that ultimately we all go back to God for the day of reckoning, when everybody will render an account of his life on this temporary abode.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And to kickstart our conversation this morning, which borders on research in cancer and international collaboration, let's quickly see this background report put together by our correspondent, Joseph Otsan.
Common lifestyle of tobacco smoking, alcohol consumption, eating of processed foods, and developing high body mass are exposing many to one of the leading causes of death globally. That disease is cancer, with the World Health Organization estimating more than 8 million deaths in 2015, as it also states that nearly 1 in 6 deaths is due to cancer. Available statistics also indicates that in 2020, an estimated 78,000 people died as a result of cancer-related complications in Nigeria. And it is also estimated that there are over 120,000 new cancer cases every year in the country. The gory statistics call for immediate action towards reducing the burden of cancer, as health experts advocate intense awareness creation and improve access to treatment and research. In 2023, Nigeria launched 3 strategic documents directing priority areas in the fight against cancer. The 3 documents include the National Strategic Cancer Control Plan 2023 to 2027, the National Cancer Research Agenda 2024 to 2027, and the National Strategic Plan for Prevention of Cancer of Uterine Cervix 2023 to 2027. The strategy is to draw action plan that will address governance, prevention, supply chain management, data and research, as well as surveillance to improve the health of all Nigerians. A vital component of the action plan is research, where relevant information and data will pave way to acquiring more knowledge and skills in dealing with causes, diagnosis, treatment pattern, and most importantly, prevention. Already, some institutions are keen in, even with international collaboration. One of such collaboration is by the Federal University of Health Science, Azari, and the Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center of the University of Miami. The collaboration engaged about 200 researchers, clinicians, scientists, and experts from both sides of the Atlantic, dialoguing, sharing cutting-edge discoveries, and exploring innovation approaches towards combating cancer. The insights and expertise are to guide young researchers towards new approaches in cancer research. Now, how significant is such international collaboration in curtailing cancer? What lessons can be learned from breakthroughs reported from other countries and researchers, and how would they relate to management of cancer in Nigeria? These and other related issues will form discourse on today's Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, many thanks, Joseph Osem, for that background report. And to begin conversation on the research in cancer and international collaboration, let me first introduce here Professor Bala Audu. He's Vice Chancellor of Federal University of Health Sciences, Azari, and Chief Convener of the conference between the university and Sylvester Comprehensive Convening in Research and Collaboration. He's also the newly elected president of the Nigerian Medical Association. Congratulations and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
All right, also joining us here in the studio is Professor Bello Abubakar. He's of the Department of Research, Development and Innovation, Federal University of Health Sciences, Azari, Bauchi State. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, we also have with us for the conversation Professor Matthew Schulambrak. He's a professor of clinical obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive sciences. He's also the vice chair of Global and Community Health Director, Gynecologic Oncology Fellowship Division of Gynecologic Oncology Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center. Long list. I think I have to stop there. Many thanks for joining us for the conversation.
Thank you. Good morning.
By the way, has been your experience in Nigeria?
Absolutely amazing.
All right. So we also have with us this time, joining us via Zoom, all the way from Kano, we have Professor Sophia George, Associate Professor, Department of Obstetrics, Gynecology and Reproductive Sciences Division of Gynecologic Oncology, Associate Director, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center, University of Miami, Miller School of Medicine. Many thanks for joining us, Prof.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay. So let's begin this conversation by simply asking, let me direct my question to the VC and ask, where are we with the research, to deal with cancer?
Well, in Nigeria, we have a lot of research work going on, many of them in silos, in hospital-based and university-based researches that have documented a lot as far as the epidemiology of various cancers are concerned. Moving forward, we need to be able to collate that data on a population-based registry, which recently the National Institute of Cancer Research took the lead to ensure that Nigeria has a robust cancer registry. And the Minister of State for Health last week actually declared that in Nigeria, cancer is now a reportable disease, which allows us to have comprehensive data on all forms of cancer in this country.
Right, and if you would say, well, the current research priorities, what are they as far as Nigeria is concerned?
The current research priorities should be directed mainly at prevention and early diagnosis of cancer. But also there's a component of the cancer treatment. And you know, cancer affects virtually every tissue in the body. So there must be research in each and every area of cancer, ranging from gynecological cancer, hematological cancer, pediatric cancers, gastric cancers. And this conversation is currently going on because there are specialists and subspecialists in these different areas. But the ones that plague us in this country, that we seek increased research data that will enable us plan and intervene effectively, include breast cancer, cervical cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer. And the beauty of this is these cancers are also preventable, but they are effective preventions only if this is carried out on a population-based approach. Unfortunately, what we have in this country at the moment is sporadic screening. And unless we move towards routine population-based screening, then we'll be able to achieve what will reduce the incidence of these cancers. And by catching these cancers at an early stage, we're also able to profile cure, particularly for cervical cancer, where the World Health Organization has declared a strategy of the 1970-90 approach to ensure that cervical cancer is eliminated as a public health problem by the year 2030. And Nigeria is already taking a cue in this by introducing the vaccination component, which is the primary prevention strategy for cervical cancer, by ensuring that all those who are eligible for vaccination, at least 90% of them are vaccinated by the year 2030.
All right. I want to thank Professor Audu for your opening comments there. Let's quickly get to Professor Abubakar now. Listening to Professor Audu, you know, so many questions on my mind, but I'd like to begin with what the challenges are at the moment, you know, for research in cancer and the kind of cancers he's talked about that, you know, are more in Nigeria, and what kind of international collaboration is Nigeria seeking, you know, to be able to get deeper into the research and be able to handle it.
Well, thank you very much. First and foremost, Professor Audu has made it very clear that most of our researches are in silos. In other words, people are doing research in different parts of the country, but it's not systemic. It is not properly institutionalized. And so clinicians tend to get engaged in research for different type of cancers. But we don't have a national concerted effort to do a strategic research. For example, let me give you an example of the liver cancer. We know that one of the real causes of liver cancer is the hepatitis virus. Now, how much of hepatitis virus do we have in this country? We don't know. We haven't done any research around that. We will want to know, we want to have a national program on screening of the hepatitis virus, hepatitis B and C. You know, it was the number one cancer in Egypt, but they were able to screen over 60 million people, and that brought down the prevalence of liver cancer by almost 80%. So that is a concerted, planned research, and this is the kind of research that we'll want to see also in Nigeria. The kind of the human papilloma virus that is responsible for cervical cancer is defined in many parts of the world, but how much of those strains that cause the cervical cancer are really prevalent in our environment? Do we have other strains that are really not covered, for example, by the vaccine? So these are kind of national planned research that we'll also want to see. So in that vein, I mean, a lot of work has been done around the globe, and most of the institutions that are involved in collaboration must have had one form of research in this direction to be able to guide us. So we are not inventing the wheel, but we want to have those data in our environment in Nigeria to be able to say, yes, this is the prevalence and this is the strategy we are going to use to mitigate it. The idea of research anywhere in the world is to be able to have proper data for that environment that will determine the kind of outcome that you will be expecting as a result of those research that you have done. If, for instance, we are trying to eliminate cervical cancer, right, and we're giving the human papilloma virus vaccines, and we know that what Nigeria is using is the quadrivalent vaccine. That means it covers 4 strains of the human papilloma virus. But there are other oncogenic viruses, those that are also going to cause cancer, right? That's why they are called oncogenic. So we'll want to know how many of those are really in Nigeria that are not really covered. We don't have that data. And it may surprise us, perhaps, that we will have more of those viruses that will cause cancer that are not covered on this vaccine. Even though it's a global thing, but it's statistical deduction that yes, strain 11 and 16 are the real culprit, or 18 as it were are the real culprit, but there are others. So that kind of research is the one that we want to see. And I'm happy to note that the newly formed National Cancer Institute for Research and Treatment is also trying to collaborate with us at the Federal University of Health Sciences to see how we can develop some national questions, national hypotheses around these things to drive the research that will be of national interest.
Okay, let me get to, I hope I get this right now, I have to, Professor Schlumbrecht. Thank you. So, maybe I should ask, I have a sense of what has brought you to Nigeria, but how is it going? How is international collaboration, such as the one you bring to Nigeria, helping to advance research in cancer in Nigeria?
So I came from the perspective of living in Miami, which has a very diverse population with a significant number of Afro-Caribbean women and African Americans. And so on the most basic level, I have these patients who talk to me and have questions about their cancer, and we don't understand, and I can't provide them the data because unfortunately women of African descent have been either excluded or not included in a lot of the clinical research that has been done in the field of cancer across a number of disease sites. We often say global is local and local is global. So what we can learn from our colleagues in Nigeria will help us back in the US, and what we can bring in terms of expertise will also help women here in Nigeria. I've had a long-standing collaboration with the International Gynecologic Cancer Society, and I serve on their global fellowship program. And so what we've done since 2018 is develop these international training programs in gynecologic cancer. And so we have several trainees here in Nigeria who participate in what we call tumor boards. So these are monthly meetings to discuss challenging cases. We use it as an educational tool. I've come to Nigeria several times to do surgical teaching. We're actually in the operating theater yesterday treating a patient with cervical cancer. And so it's this kind of bidirectionality that's really going to allow us to enhance clinical care here, but also to better understand disease pathogenesis, some of the genetic drivers of disease, so that, as Prof. Bala had mentioned, identify very early on where we can intervene to either prevent disease or to find it when it's still very early.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Schlamberg. We'll get back to you, but let's head to Kano now, where Professor Sophia George joins us via Zoom. Reading the profile of the guest here and reading a bit about cancer research, I want to find out how will international collaboration actually enhance the capacity of Nigerian researchers. Professor Bello Abubakar was talking about some of the challenges and then the data and all of that's happening, and then people having their individual research, no national coordination in all of this. So how would this assist Nigerian researchers and healthcare professionals to conduct high quality cancer research and produce evidence-based care?
Yes, so good morning. What we have done is leverage our ability to do both clinical and basic science research to collaborate and work with our colleagues here, I'm in the North right now, to build infrastructure, both for data science capture, also protocol development, so that when research is being done here, that it is done with the highest integrity in the context of the infrastructure that we're doing, the data type of data that we're collecting, so that we can make better inferences from what the data tells us. And so for us, our collaboration includes, like as Dr. Schlamberg said, bidirectionality, learning also from our colleagues here in Azare and in Kano, from Prof. Bala and Prof. Bello. And so we hope that it's learning on both sides, learning about our populations on both sides, and then being able to share data in a protected way, actually. And so we've come with data scientists here to be able to, again, bidirectional collaboration in building data systems, in looking at the data that we've collected collaboratively and also independently, so that when we make conclusions, that they're conclusions based on like really strong data.
Thank you very much, Professor George. Let me get back here in the studio with Professor Mohammed Audu. What challenges are there? What are the stumbling blocks to researching into cancer in Nigeria?
The greatest challenging blocks are getting the modern, up-to-date equipment that are needed to study cancer at the molecular level, as well as the training and retraining of the highly skilled manpower that is needed to carry out these investigations and to interpret the results of these investigations. With equipment also comes the consumables in terms of gene probes, especially for genetic studies and molecular studies, that are needed to carry out these studies over time. I'll give you, for example, we have a grant from TEDFund, the NRF grant. We won to study megagenomics of ovarian and cervical cancer as a comparison, and to see if these megagenomics by understanding them, we can improve treatment outcomes, because the bacterial, the microbial microenvironment of the cancer itself may affect how patients respond to treatment. However, the cost of doing one sample can be so prohibitive, especially at this time in our economy when we look at the conversion of the naira to the dollar, especially since virtually all these reagents have to come from outside this country. And this brings to value the kind of international collaboration we're having with the University of Miami. And we are leveraging this relationship to do these investigations with them. And we have applied for tissue transfer between our institution and their institution to be able to carry out these investigations out there. And that is why we're talking about capacity building. With the coming in of the institutions like NICRAT, we believe we'll be able to develop those infrastructure in this country and be able to support the equipment base that is needed, as well as provide the consumables for us to be able to carry out such researches directly in this country and still leverage on the international collaborations we have. It also gives advantage to have this kind of international collaboration because there is diversity. For example, at the early stage of our collaboration, we studied the pattern of ovarian cancers we see in this country. It was a very large study that involved 22 different centers in this country, and we compared that data with what is seen among Afro-Americans in the United States, as well as African Caribbeans. And there was quite a significant difference. What seemed rare over there was relatively common here. And we now are trying to define why, for instance, we have more germ cell tumors of the ovary in this part of the world compared to what they see there, and whether there are genetic differences and even response to treatment. In addition, part of what we discussed at this convening is a clinical trial that comes from the United States that is being carried out by the University of Miami at the Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital on the use of PAP inhibitors in the treatment of ovarian cancer. These are drugs that are already in use and approved by FCDA in the United States. But like Professor Matt Stromberg mentioned, there is a paucity of testing and clinical trial amongst blacks, even in the United States. And bringing this kind of study to this country helps us leverage to see how these drugs can effectively be used in our population. Even though these drugs are very expensive, but our patients also stand the advantage of getting these drugs free during that period of clinical trial. So it brings in a lot of advantages. We see the challenges, and the essence of challenges is to find ways of overcoming these challenges, and that is what we are doing.
Okay, talking about overcoming challenges, we've had programs on this station, on this program, Good Morning Nigeria, about cancer, and you also pointed it out in your initial comments, talking about early diagnosis of cancer as being a major challenge. Now, with this research, help to address that problem. I'm asking that because we know a lot of people who have gone on to die or suffer complications as a result of cancer are not necessarily really based on the fact that early diagnosis wasn't done. Would you want to put that challenge on research or on manpower or on infrastructure?
It's a combination of a number of factors. It's a combination mainly to do early diagnosis. You have to screen the population. And that is why I talked about routine screening that is population-based. What we have currently, and let me use particularly those cancers that WHO have identified as cancers that should be screened routinely using specific guidelines, include breast cancer, cervical cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer. Let me use the case of cervical cancer. Screening for cervical cancer generally is said should begin at least the age of around 35. Lower age for us here in this country, 30. And what are we really screening for? That is outside of vaccination, which is a primary prevention. Screening is a secondary preventive measure that allows you to identify those that first are at risk of developing the disease, because you can identify that they carry high-risk human papilloma virus. But many of them will clear it. Okay? Then, during that procedure, you are also able to identify if they have high-risk human papilloma virus. Then, you now look at the cells on the surface of the cervix. So you do what's called a pap smear, or you do any of the other related investigations that identify whether they have precursor lesions. These are changes in the cells that indicate that if this is allowed to continue over time, it will develop into cancer. Now, there is cost to that. And we all know that in this country, most of us pay for health out of pocket. And that is a great limitation. So if we're able to provide through the National Cancer Fund for screening, then a large number of the population will now take advantage of that and come for screening. Now, during screening, like I said, when you see those precursor lesions, then you intervene. So there's no point that you screen and you cannot intervene and you cannot treat. In this country, we do the pap smear. We also do what is called visual inspection with acetic acid. And with that, once we see the lesion, we actually treat instantly. But for it to be impactful, it must be done routinely and population-based, not sporadic. Sporadic means patients come, for instance, to the gynecological clinic for other reasons like family planning and so on, and you take that opportunity. So you see, you're just looking at a very minimal infinitesimal proportion of the population. Now, once you're doing that routinely, then you are also able to catch what is called early disease. It's called early disease because it's asymptomatic. It is so early, it has started at the levels of the cell beginning to change to cancer. But it does not cause any problem. You don't feel anything, so you don't even have a complaint. But when you look under the microscope, you're able to see those cancerous changes have already started. And when you catch it early, you can actually treat it, and not just treat it, you cure it. Once it goes beyond what is called early disease, it's not curable. You can treat, but you do not achieve cure. So the essence of screening is to prevent its development to cancer, and then to catch cancer of the cervix, at an early stage and cure it. Okay? So you see the mitigating factors really are infrastructure, cost, all right, and recurrent cost, as well as, of course, the skilled manpower, particularly at this stage of our history in the health sector, where we have a significant proportion of our healthcare providers emigrating out of this country, which is a different conversation for another day.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Audu. I was going to ask, I know someone who was very close who had cervical cancer and got cured. And that was because they said, well, it showed up early, the doctors became aware early, treatment commenced early, and there was cure. But these days when you hear that someone has, in fact, most forms of cancer, it's almost like a death sentence. Now, at the moment, if Professor Audu is saying, well, we have to do population-based screening, while we are unable to achieve population-based screening well at the moment, what else can be done to be able to achieve early diagnosis and then be able to cure? Yes.
Thank you so much. It is not impossible, really, to have population-based screening in this country. Why? Because the Federal Ministry of Health has developed a program, the National Comprehensive Cancer Program. And in that cancer program, in that document, there is screening for all the main cancers, the most prevalent ones that he has enumerated: breast cancer, cervical cancer, and prostate cancer. The only problem that we have there is costing. Is where do we get the money to unleash it? And we have to, one way or the other, because no country can survive without institutionalized national screening programs. But while that is ongoing, education is very critical. And that is why we have a lot of advocates around the country that have been educating people to go and get screened. If we are able to convince average Nigerians that screening is very fundamental and it can prevent it, it can save your life, then I want to believe that we are going to make a lot of changes. But education is very critical. Awareness is very critical. Acceptance is also very critical. Nigerians must accept also that screening is fundamental. Screening is the way to go to prevent, excuse me, to prevent late diseases. We do know that 86% of our patients present at stage 3 and 4. But that narrative can change with a lot of education and a lot of convincing as well. Because when the vaccine for the human papilloma virus was launched, a lot of people were shying away because they felt there were this, fake news that is going to cause infertility, is going to do this and that. And the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency had to, reach out to opinion leaders, to our fathers, royal fathers, our clerics, and so on, to start talking to our people that this is not true and this is very critical. And with that, a lot of people came up. I was happy to note that in my state, the uptake was over 86%, which is so fantastic, I came from Bauchi State, right? So if we are able to convince people to take vaccine, we may as well try as much as possible to convince people to go for screening. You'll be surprised that in this NTA today, if you take a quick survey, how many men above the age of 40 have gone to do a PSA test for prostate cancer? you'd be surprised that it's less than 10%. And yet this thing keeps going on and on. So we need to educate and re-educate our people, and also to convince them, because it is one thing to talk to them and it's another to convince them to go and do those screenings. The screenings are readily available in this country. You will not go to any major city where you cannot get pap smear or VIA or mammography or a PSA test, which is a simple blood test, okay, that can save many Africans' lives, because prostate cancer is the #1 disease of Africans and people of African descent. And it's something that you can actually pick early and treat early to prevent all the possible complications that come with it. But because people are still not convinced that it is critical to go and do those tests, the PSA, the pap smear, the mammography, that is why we keep getting people at the age of, at late stage.
All right,
we still believe it's not my portion. You know, I reject it. So people don't save money for rainy days for their health care. When people receive salaries, they have small money that is for fuel, for repair of their vehicles, but they don't save anything for their own house. And that is why they always don't want to go and do basic things until it is really late.
You know, Professor Abubakar, talking about being really late and your comment about the fact that most cancer patients present at the 3rd and 4th stage, not all of those patients actually shy away from health facilities at the early stages of that ailment. Sometimes it is the inability of medical professionals to diagnose exactly, you know, correctly at the initial stages of such ailments. That's why I try to ask about infrastructure. We know about the primary health care centers. We know about secondary, tertiary medical facilities and all of that. But, you know, there are some medical centers you get to today in this country that, I mean, they don't do all of this. So when you present, they are treating malaria, fever, and the rest, and it is when all of those treatments fail that, you know, you get referred somewhere else where it is eventually discovered that you're dealing with cancer, and at that stage it becomes too late. So I want you to speak around that. The fact that what you're saying, the screening and the rest is not available everywhere. That's one. Then two, talking about vaccination. I'm glad that you mentioned it, because I had it in my mind to ask. There's this conspiracy theory about vaccinations, not just about the HPV vaccine, about vaccinations in general. That you know, there's this saying, there's this thing going around town about the fact that, oh, it's a plan by the West to do this to the African population. Speak about that, in as much as I also want Professor Matthew to talk about it too.
Okay. So what I said, I want to repeat that again, is that there is no any urban center in this country where you cannot get screening. That's what I said. Now, what the Federal Ministry of Health is doing now is to really develop the national, the primary clinics around the country, the primary health care clinics, such a way that they will be able to do basic investigations such as screening for cervical cancer. And the coordinating minister of health is very specific about this, that they are trying to make sure that the primary health care is properly and fully developed, that they are able to do excuse me, able to do screenings. And this is ongoing. They have started with about 7,500, I think, primary health care, where they are really developing them, and very soon they should be able to. Yes, I totally agree with you that some clinicians, you know, don't consider cancer as part of their differentials when they are seeing their patients. And that is changing through education We are doing a lot of education and retraining of clinicians as well, so that they will recognize that cancer is a very important differential, so that when you are treating somebody that has epigastric pain, persistent, and you think it is ulcer, and it has not been cured, after the first treatment, second treatment, you need to start thinking of other differentials, such as gastric cancer, such as pancreatic cancer, and then refer them to the appropriate hospitals. It is not right that in the primary institutions you will treat cancers. Most cancers are treated in tertiary institutions, and that is where the problem is. And so those that are working in the secondary institutions have not taken advantage of all the differentials that they have. We have developed also a desktop manual at the Federal Ministry of Health that will educate or remind rather clinicians that are practicing in the secondary institutions, the general hospitals, and I think is being distributed free of charge. That will remind them, because they work so hard. They are very few. Majority of the people have left the shores of this country, and we're having a deficit. It's one country. Nigeria is one of the few countries that we don't look at the doctors-patient ratio. So if 20 of us are working in this place, and within 1 month, 10 of us have left, nobody is worried that we need to replace them. The burden of that work continues with the remaining 10 doctors. And that is why a lot of doctors are in a hurry. They are in a hurry to treat patients. So they are not very thorough. But they are still working very hard. And I want to assure you that the Federal Ministry of Health, I'm not a spokesperson for them, but from what I have seen going on now with the new Minister of Health, a lot is being done to change that narrative.
Okay.
And of course, maybe he will talk about the conspiracy theory, but we have been talking. There was this conspiracy theory that was really, really hot in Abuja about last year, toward the end of last year, around the human papilloma virus. And it was even discussed on one program called Berkete Family. And so many people had to go and educate those people that think that it is used, to reduce the fertility of people.
All right. Professor Bello, thank you. Thank you very much. While you have invited Professor Schlombert to talk about the conspiracy theory, let me add to it. How close is humanity to finding vaccine for cancer?
That's a good question. So I'll talk about the conspiracy theories first.
Oh, don't have a lot of time.
I'll go very quickly. Those things are universal, unfortunately. We see that in the United States as well. Although the narrative is a little bit different. In the US, people think vaccines cause autism, or that the human papillomavirus vaccine causes promiscuity. And there have been some very good data to show that it does not do that. It doesn't increase teenage pregnancy rates. It actually facilitates a dialogue about contraception and sexually transmitted infections and things like that. So I think recognizing the patient's concern and acknowledging that, but then utilizing the tools that you have to educate them, utilizing community leaders, faith leaders, thought leaders, I think that's a very good approach. In terms of, is there a vaccine for cancer cure? Every single cancer is different, and the genetics of each cancer is different. I think that there are going to be some cancers, things that are mediated by viruses, like we've been talking about with the HPV, that could be cured by a vaccine. But I think that in terms of prevention, we need to think a little bit outside of the box about what constitutes increased risk, and think about things even including risk-reducing surgery. So if somebody has a genetic condition that would put them at very high risk for ovarian cancer, there are guidelines to remove their ovaries at the completion of childbearing, because we can reduce that risk by 90%. When we are looking at some of the novel treatments, though, we have a lot of opportunity for cure, even if people get cancer. So while chemotherapy has been the backbone of treatment for decades, as we move into the new era, we have things like cancer vaccines, so vaccines for people who actually have cancer. We have immunotherapies. We have what are called new targeted therapies. And what those things do is they directly impact the cancer cell and interfere how it communicates within itself. So the communication, the clinical trial that Prof. Bala was mentioning earlier utilizes PARP inhibitors that in some patients, even if they present at stage 3 or 4, can end up being curative. And so we need to look at cancer treatment as a continuum, not just kind of primary prevention and screening, but also what can we do to enhance the research kind of globally to make sure that the treatments that we're coming up with are highly effective.
All right, thank you, Professor Schillenberg. Of course, interesting to note that even in the US, there are conspiracy theories about vaccines too. You know, it's important that Nigerians hear that, Africans hear that too, just so that, you know, they can be at home with vaccines and save our lives. I'd like to get to Professor Sophia George now. You know, so much about cancer now. The numbers are increasing by the day. Could you, you know, just speak to us about what is responsible for the increased number of people coming down with cancer, and you know, just speak around it. Is it lifestyle? Is it I don't know. Everything now is being blamed on global warming. So I mean, speak to us about that.
Sure. So there, beyond genetics, which is a stable factor, there are other factors like, as you said, lifestyle. And what we mean by lifestyle, it includes diet, exercise, of course, smoking, alcohol consumption, and there's also environments like, you know, air pollution and so on. But these four, so diet, exercise, smoking, and alcohol consumption, are responsible for at least 17 types of cancers in terms of the excess. And so, you know, even if I'm a molecular geneticist, we also talk about how we can mediate and smoking, which we know are triggers for increasing the risk for cancer.
What are the opportunities and challenges, you know, of international collaboration in cancer research and care in Nigeria, and how can we strike a balance between, you know, local empowerment and that global cooperation?
The advantage we have and the focus we're directing our collaboration is to understand and ask our own local questions that will explain what we see in our own environment, and to build our own capacity to be able to do clinical trials that check the efficacy and safety of the cancer drugs that we use in this country within our own population, and to compare this with the differences that could exist between us and what is observed in other parts of the world amongst blacks in the diaspora and also amongst Caucasians. And this will give us an insight on how to modulate our own treatment and the treatment difference that we need to put in place to get better outcomes when we intervene in our own population. Because it has been shown both incidence as well as how cancers progress amongst different populations is different. And even in terms of response to treatment, there are differences to response to treatment. And these are the questions we want to ask on our own side and profile solutions to them so that our interventions are more effective and produce results that are in the range of best international practices.
In terms of proffering solutions, are you looking at homegrown solutions such that, I know you have international collaboration where you I mean, most of the medication and all that you're using, not just for cancer, but for other ailments in the country, medical professionals like you would prefer to import the drugs and none of that. But we've also had people talk about alternative medicine, talking about the Nigerian society being filled with all kinds of medicines that we have and all that. So are you looking in that direction too in your research, such that we are not totally dependent on the outside world in dealing with cancer?
Well, these are aspects that our research can also progress into, which I must say at the moment are not the immediate things on our table, because they are more fundamental issues. Currently, we're leveraging on what already exists internationally. Yes, we can also leverage, and this will depend on how robust response we get from our pharmaceutical manufacturing sector of this country in terms of producing generic drugs that can be used in treating cancer. Of course, we can also research into alternative medicine. The Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria still regulates alternative medicine practice in this country, and we can definitely research into our local herbal medications. But as you know, this needs to be properly regulated, properly tested, and adequate clinical trial carried out to ensure that they are both effective, efficacious, and safe.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me quickly, we have just a few minutes to go. There's a couple of minutes. So maybe in 1 minute, Professor Bello will be able to tell us if these international partnerships are facilitating, the transfer of technology and expertise in cancer diagnosis and treatment here in Nigeria.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Yes, they are. Not only that, they are also encouraging best clinical practice that is done globally. There is always learning. He has mentioned the tumor boards that we are talking about, where, hospitals interact with different part of the world to see whether their practice, is actually in tandem with the rest of the world. So that is very critical, and this is one of the things that we are always encouraging, because it is the low-hanging fruit. You discuss with your colleagues on patients' care to know whether you are really doing the right thing or not. That helps you a lot. And Nigeria is not an exception. It's a global village as well, where whatever you are doing here may have an impact on another part of the world. So yes, international collaboration is really supporting what we are doing here, and it will only get better outcome for our patients.
All right, because of time, we'll have to leave the conversation at that point. Many thanks, Professor Bala Mohammed Audu, Vice Chancellor of Federal University of Health Sciences, Azare, and Chief Convener of the conference between the university and Silver Star Comprehensive Convening in Research and Collaboration, and of Cancer Center and Research. All right, thank you so much. And of course, the newly elected president, Nigerian Medical Association. Many thanks for joining us, Professor Audu.
Thank you for having me.
By the way, you need to tell us the venue for the celebration. All right. We also like to appreciate Professor Bala Abubakar from the Department of Research, Development and Innovation, Federal University of Health Sciences, Azare, Bauchi State. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and yes, Professor Matthew Schulambrak, Professor of Clinical Obstetrics, Gynecology and Reproductive Sciences. I'll have to stop there because of time. It's a long list, Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we want to see more of you in Nigeria.
I'll be back soon.
All right, thank you. And yes, Professor Sophia George, Associate Professor, Department of Obstetrics, Gynecology and Reproductive Sciences, Division of Gynecological Oncology. Thank you so much. I'd also have to stop there. Thank you so much for joining us for the conversation, ma'am. All right, so we'll take a break now. When we come back again into the second part of the conversation, which is on albinism. Stay with us.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables, and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Meet lovebirds Jayola and Adama Davies. Their dream of living together as man and wife has finally been fulfilled.
The latest couple in town. Mr. and Mrs. Jaye Davis!
But an invasion by their troublesome families was not a scenario they bargained for. Her mother moves in. His mother shows up with his little niece. Then her younger sister joins the scramble.
You want to stay?
Married life suddenly becomes very complicated even before it started. Follow their story on this channel as they confront every challenge as it comes. Family forever, the story of our lives.
Ten years ago, Nigeria joined the global community in recognizing International Albinism Awareness Day. Since then, the country has made strides in promoting inclusivity and challenging harmful stereotypes, but there's still much work to be done.
Indeed, as we reflect on the progress made and the challenges in that terrain that remain, we bring together experts, advocates, and individuals living with albinism to share their stories, insights, and hopes for the future.
Now, from combating discrimination and stigma to promoting access to healthcare and education, we'll explore the issues that matter most.
All right, come along as we shine the light on the experiences of people with albinism in Nigeria and work together towards a society that values and embraces diversity in all its forms. We are now joined here in the studio by Jake Epele, who is Chief Executive Officer and Founder, the Albino Foundation Africa. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. 10 years on, what progress would you say have been made in this, in addressing the stigma and discrimination faced by people with albinism in Nigeria over, the time?
I think I'd like to go back, in the past, talk about the present going into the future. Before 10 years, we have been involved, and thanks to organizations like NTA, unknown to many people, it was actually staff of NTA, late Jibo and several other stars of those days that actually encouraged me to start the foundation. Augustina, Jibo, Ibn Muhammad. These were three people that I was on I think it's face to face or in those days. And after the interview, they said, look, so there's been a very strategic, very result-oriented advocacy. I was, to the glory of God, part of the team, the global team, that was on Action on Albinism, which is a UN system that gave birth to International Albinism Awareness Day. Though skeptics those days said, look, nobody's going to give you that, albinism is not known and all that. But we stood our ground, stayed committed, and here we are. So these 10 years has been 10 years of awareness, creating, getting the media to get involved. It's been 10 years of advocacy and legislation. We have, Nigeria is the first country in the world to formulate the national policy on albinism, and which is the policy framework that is being used in many countries today, including the UN system. It's been 10 years of education and empowerment. We've seen the integration, the inclusion of persons with albinism into the education sector. As a matter of fact, it was the Federal Ministry of Education, and still the Federal Ministry of Education, that served as the focal ministry. There were 9 ministries. They serve as the focal ministry that formulated the national policy on albinism, and that policy has been reviewed the second time. And I think also, I'm sure, that there is now a budget specifically for albinism in the Federal Ministry of Education.
The way for budget, for albinism in terms of cultural and societal attitudes, where would you say we are now, in dealing with harmful stereotypes and superstitions?
There's been a reduction. I wouldn't say that we've arrived at a 100% threshold, but there's been a reduction. I remember growing up, I'm 63 now. I remember growing up when I started this 20 years ago. You can't walk on the street without children running after you and singing, or you go pepe, if you eat pepe, you go yellow more. So there's been a reduction. There's been a reduction in the name calling. There's all kinds of derogatory name across board that we had to fight for. There's been a reduction in lack of awareness. The only thing that we're still battling with is the issue of skin cancer. As you know, I'm a skin cancer survivor. And so there are many persons with albinism that are dying of skin cancer, and they're dying in droves, because skin cancer is the greatest problem that persons with albinism are facing.
What are the experiences of people, with albinism in today's Nigerian workforce, and how can employers better support and include them, in your opinion?
I think very, very good question. The experiences, like I said, there's been a very below average reduction. Before now, you have a situation where you can't get a job, hardly can you get a job as a person with albinism. I remember my first job interview when I was interviewed, and the person told me to my face, but look, I think you're smart enough to get this job, but I don't think you will be able to see. Therefore, we can't give you the job. That was the last time I ever went for any job interview. That instant discrimination propelled me to start fending for myself. So I went into business, did well, I can tell you that, and then left business because I knew that I was not created to do any other thing than what I'm doing right now. It was a hard cry. I wanted God to tell me what why he created me. And at my 45th birthday, I heard God clearly say to me, go and help others like you. And that's why I created you. And that's how I started the then Albino Foundation. Of course, after a few years, we scaled up and we decided to focus on disability in general. And I'll tell you why. One, at the time that I was championing the advocacy for albinism, I noticed that albinism was not a development issue, but disability has become a development issue. And I went into research to know what is it that is in albinism that has in an intersection with disability. Of course, our sight. I'm standing here. I'm not able to see you clearly. You know, many of you in NTA and several other are my friends. Conscience, for instance, she keep introducing herself all the time. Your DG, we're both fellows of NIPR. He had to introduce himself, you know. So that's a major problem, and the glasses can't help us. Even though sometimes we wear,
you know, so many challenges. You talked about the health challenge, and then, of course, getting a job. Of course, education is also there as a challenge, and other kinds of issues that people with albinism face. What role do you think government can play, and policy that you would like to see that will promote inclusivity and also help in addressing some of these challenges?
Well, like I said, I'm privileged and humbled to be one of the first in the world that was involved in formulating the national policy on albinism. Nigeria is the first country in the world that formulated the national policy on albinism. And we captured whether it's education, health, social stigma, economic empowerment, all of that has been captured. Like I said, the Federal Ministry of Education, under the watchful eyes of the current minister and my sister, the permanent secretary, had worked with us to mainstream not only albinism but disability in their budget. Again, I've been part of about 7 policies in the country. The inclusive education policy, I was the first chairman of the inclusive education policy, and then we also, my organization funded through Site Savers, funded the review of the current inclusive education policy. Now the strategy is to be there when holistic social issues are discussed, so that I can mainstream not only albinism but disability. You know, so government, I would say, had given us access to come up with whatever that will serve as an intervention. Where the rubber meets the road sometimes is in implementation. You know, but there is no doubt what we're doing is a progressive development issue. So we'll keep pushing, keep mainstreaming, keep demanding for practical solution and application. You know, so where we are coming from, there's been a huge progress, but there's a whole lot more to be done.
And you know, as you continue this whole lot that needs to be done, how can we strike a balance between the need for awareness and education with the need to protect the privacy and security of individuals with albinism?
Well, everything is in the open now, but for instance, in our organization, we're very, very, very focused on data protection. You probably may know that we do work with INEC in manning data for not just for persons with albinism, but for persons with disability. It's interesting to note here, and that's what, I'm not trying to blow my trumpet, but that's what good strategic advocacy can produce. In terms of political participation, when we started the project, in making sure that persons with disability in general are given space in the political realm, we have seen till date that every time data, issue of data comes up in INEC and all that, the persons with albinism is always in the lead in the whole spectrum of disability participation. Persons with albinism, the data are there. I'm not just making up things. Anybody can see if you go to INEC, you know. And so in terms of managing data, like you rightly asked, we are very, very conscious of that, and we put everything in place to ensure that nobody will have access to the privacy of an individual who have given us information. We do not share information with anybody. On Monday, a group is coming to donate sunscreen to a few members of the albinism community in Abuja. And I was very, very particular and upfront with them. You can do whatever you want to do. You can only get the information of any individual when they sign the consent with you that you can have that information. So we're very, very hands-on on data and privacy protection.
Beautiful. 10 years down the line already, looking ahead now, what are the key priorities and goals for the albinism community?
Well, going forward, you know, like I told you, and I'm not ashamed to say that I'm 63. By the way, I look good at 63, don't I?
Of course.
Yeah, so what I did was I created a parallel organization called Albinism Association of Nigeria, and led for just 6 months, resigned, and the reason is that I know that age is on my side. So I wanted younger ones to, like I always said, I don't want people to take over from me at my funeral. I want to be alive and hand over. So I handed over to the current acting president, Lucy, and I think she's doing a good job. And so what we've done is to create a legacy pathway for the albinism community. We are focused also on getting them educated. Again, my relationship with NTA and some of the things that we've done, we've been able to send a number of them to school. And my greatest success story is Oluchi Iwa, that we were able to get grants sent her to Aberdeen University. She came back with a master's degree, and she's gone back to do a second master's in the UK. And you know, in terms of political participation, today we have persons with albinism elected, not selected. We have one in the National Assembly, State Assembly of the Ilorin Kwara, and several of them across board. Now, my strategy as a head of my organization is to push not only persons with albinism, but persons with disability. And we've tested the water. Many of them wanted to go to House of Rep, you know, governors and all that. And I said to them, listen, let us grow from the bottom top, you know. And so our focus now is to push them into the local government election space and let them become local government chairman and grow. Leadership is bottom top. You know, you don't just emerge at the top overnight. You know, you need to have experience. And so many of them are contesting for local government chairman, councillors, and all that. And we have become I am very passionate about the local government elections. As of today, we are working with about 6 states because we've developed the framework for inclusion. By next week, I'll be in Delta. Delta is doing their local government election. So, and Dr. Jerry, who is the chairman of Delta Independent Electoral Commission, had given us unfettered access He wants to see inclusion. You know, not only did they wrote officially. We're working with Sokoto State. We're working with Plateau, the governor, Governor Caleb, His Excellency is a good friend. And so we're going around the country providing the enabling environment and the framework for electoral participation, not only for persons with albinism, but for the community of persons with disability.
But could you point at a major challenge for women living with albinism, away from the other challenges you've mentioned, that is particular to women with this condition?
I know you asked that, and you're rightly so. Yes, the greatest problem with women with albinism is more of relational issues, relationship, getting married. For me, education. But let me talk about relational issues. Many of them truly are very compassionate, loving, very beautiful. But just like men, although it's more on women, many families don't want husband that wants to marry them. It happens with us too as men, but I think it's more on the women's side. So they struggle relationally. Even women that don't have albinism, that gave birth to children with albinism, they have huge issues, you know. So there are relational issues, complete abuse and neglect. This syndrome of, oh, I want to test you first before I marry you, happens not only for persons with albinism, but across board, persons with disability. You know, they violate them and oftentimes leave them without a continuation of that relationship. I've had calls by midnight, some of them. There was one in this Abuja that wanted to commit suicide at 2 a.m. and we reached out to her, began to talk to her. Then she had this husband that felt that, oh, I'm just doing you a favor. Look at you, you're a person with albinism. Who would have married you? You understand? Which is always virtually a reason across board. You know, someone may watch and say, oh, it doesn't happen to me. The fact that it doesn't happen to you does not mean it doesn't happen to others. I've been in this space for 20 years and I document stories, you know. And so we've had several stories of abuse, neglect, several stories of parents not wanting to send them to school, not only the women folks, but generally. Several stories of women giving birth to persons with albinism and hiding them in the house, not wanting people to know. You know, several stories of parents rejecting their children and say, look, you've caused me an embarrassment. I don't want you in my life. I'm telling you real life stories. And so what are we doing to mitigate these issues? Well, awareness, two, engagement. We engage with the family, we engage with husbands. I've had to fight some husbands, and many of them has also threatened me. You understand? But I don't care.
Because of time, would have to leave the conversation there. But just in 10 seconds, I'd like you to respond to the fact that you already mentioned that people who have albinism face certain challenges like their sight and all of that. So if they get positions like in politics, what is the probability that they would be able to deliver?
Oh yeah, there are many of us who are essays in this current dispensation.
So they're able to live.
Oh yes,
and,
you know,
and deliver
project,
beyond the challenge.
We do have a project called Able to Serve. Albinism is part of it. We not only recommend for them to be appointed, we also train them on how to make sure they leave a legacy in the appointment, and then we follow up with monitoring and evaluation. Seeing that they do well, and where they don't do well, we don't fail to recall them. We ask, look, leave the space.
All right, thank you very much, Jacob Haley, Chief Executive Officer and founder of the Albino Foundation Africa, for joining us for the conversation this morning. Wish you the very best, and of course, seeing that some of these challenges are overcome. Thank you.
Thank you. My gratitude to your DG for all that he does for us. Thank you.
And I hope you recognize him the next time.
Oh, he does. Yeah, I will.
All right, so that's Good Morning Nigeria. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ian John. Have a great weekend.
Well, I'm Victor as well. Enjoy your weekend.